Many of you already use or may be familiar with our app Sectormentor, which is specifically for vineyards. Sectormentor makes it easy to predict yields, monitor ripeness, understand soil health and biodiversity, and track vineyard activities block by block, as well as much more. And in November of 2023, we released the Regen dashboard in partnership with Nicole Masters, and that actually allows you to benchmark and track your regenerative viticulture journey using the 10 Regen indicators, as well as get tips and tricks from Nicole on how to improve them. So all that's to say that at Vidacycle, we're committed to building ecology, profitability, and beauty on farms around the world. And in that journey, we're always being exposed to amazing stuff that's happening on the ground. But we do think, not enough people get to hear about what's really happening. And especially like the real implementation details of a regenerative approach. So the Regenerative Viticulture series is about connecting the conversations, sharing knowledge, and highlighting the work, for example, of Anne Bousquet, who's here today, and others, as brilliant resources if you want to take a more regenerative approach. So just an FYI, if you want to ask any questions, there is a Q&A button on Zoom. Please do type in any questions there, and they'll be visible to everyone. And then you can also upvote someone else's question using the thumbs up button. And great, thanks for everyone for introducing yourselves, where you're zooming in from. Great to hear from people all over. So today it's such a pleasure to be talking to Anne Bousquet. This conversation, it's a bit different to previous conversations because in the past, we've almost always been speaking to the people implementing the regenerative agriculture techniques on the ground. And of course, that's hugely important, and we will continue to do that. But we also realized we want to focus a little bit on how to implement a regenerative approach in larger scale businesses. And that requires looking at the regenerative approach at different levels. And then we first came across Anne because Domaine Bousquet released a sustainability report with the Vine Strategy Group last year. And I have to admit, I'm not really into reports. So for some reason, I was drawn to this report and I was extremely impressed. The integrity and level of detail in the report is kind of amazing. And you really went into all about soil health, biodiversity, water, as well as social health. It really is all encompassing. I didn't think I would ever say this about a sustainability report, but it's a worthwhile read. And today we'll actually dig further into some of the details of how Anne and her team have already achieved organic, biodynamic, and regenerative organic certification, as well as B Corp status across their 220 hectares in Guatallari, Argentina. Not only that, they also help their partner growers to do the same. So really is amazing. So I guess, to bring it all together, really we're asking the question, how can you implement regenerative viticulture across hundreds of hectares? And Anne, this is the perfect point to bring you in and to say, how can you do this? Well, maybe actually you could start by just sharing a bit about yourself and your business and your background, and then we'll dig into the details.
Well, thank you so much, Abby, for a great introduction. So, yes, how do we do this through hundreds of hectares? Well, in our case, we started at the very beginning, from nothing, from scratch. We started this journey, and we're still on this journey because it is a journey. 1997, right here where I am today in Argentina. I'm French originally, so I grew up on a vineyard. Family vineyard in France. We had a small winery there in Languedoc, in the south of France, and my dad decided to sell everything there to come to where I am today in Yuco Valley near Mendoza city in Mendoza province, which is the biggest province for wine production in Argentina. But where we are particularly, there were no wineries at the time. There was absolutely nothing, just uncultivated land. And so we got here and we got the vision, and especially my dad, given the terroir, so that combination of the climate and the soil, got the vision that this terroir will be one of the best terroir one day of Argentina. And again, that was in 97. And today that vision came true. So we were one of the first one coming here. What impacted us was this terroir where we have the mountain, which is a major element because we are at 4,000 feet altitude at the foot of a mountain, 4,000 feet altitude or 1,200 meters. And that is extremely important because that gives us this coolness we get at night, and during the day we get a strong sun for the ripeness. So that is very important for the quality of the wines. And then Mendoza itself, as a wine region, is the driest wine region in the world. This is where, as wine regions, you have very little rain, and that we understood as a family that this very dry climate had two major implications. First, we could do organic. And because the number one enemy of organic is humidity. So having a dry climate would allow us to do organic. So we decided from the get-go, as we were planting the vines, starting in 98, 99, to do organic right away. And we were certified by the time we started to sell our first bottle in 2005, we were already certified organic. And the second implication of that, of the fact that it's a very dry region, is that water is extremely important. Because we don't have rain, we depend on the water of the mountain. So when it snows a lot in the mountain, we get good water down in the plain to cultivate our vines. So the sense of the importance of the water was with us from the very beginning, So we put immediately, when we were planting, we did all our vineyards with drip irrigation, which at the time in the late 90s in Argentina was an innovation. Like, not many people had it, and that allows you to really save a lot of water. And again, we're born as a vineyard, and as a winery, starting to vinify our first grapes, starting in 2002. We were born with organic, and we were born with this strong integration in our DNA of, we have to take care of our water. We have to take care of our soil. We have to take care of the natural elements that we have, because we saw right away as we arrived the effect of climate change. I'll tell you more. In late 90s when we arrived, we have still paper pictures of where we are here today, or during the winter, which for us the winter is from June to September, being the southern hemisphere. And during the winter at 1,200 meters altitude where we are, we used to have accumulation of snow of a good half meter, and we have paper pictures of that. By the mid 2000, and I moved full time in 2009 here, that was it. We did not have such accumulation of snow. And that is very serious. It still snows, and to this day still snows during the winter, but a few centimeters that are gone immediately. And if we have less snow where we are at 1,200 meters or 4,000 feet, you have also less snow at the top of the mountain. That is due to climate change. We see it everywhere in the world, that climate is changing with drastic change of temperatures, or rain when we shouldn't have it, or frost when we shouldn't have it, rain that can be extremely intense, or hailstorms that can be extremely intense, and we got one of them in last year in 24. So from the very beginning, as we were growing, we were still in the infancy of our vineyard and winery. We saw first thing, we saw the effect through the water and the snow of the climate change. And that is how we, from the very beginning, had a very big emphasis on doing whatever we can, since we are in this region that allows us to do organic, to do whatever we can from the environmental side. And then that evolved, because also one of the very important points is that we, as I said, when we arrived here, there were no vineyards. So in 97, late 90s, we started. And when you start in a very rural area that doesn't have vineyards, and you need to start setting up teams and train these teams, but the workers were not trained to work in vineyards, so we had to train them. So we had to work with the community. So also from the very beginning, as we were growing, we had to work with the community. We had to have this back and forth with the community and grew together. And that has been an amazing experience, especially for me coming from Europe. You know, I grew up in Europe, was born there. I stayed there until I was 21, and then I went to the US to finish my studies and had a whole different careers as an economist. So I grew up and did my first adult years in already developed economies. And I'm an economist. And so when I came here and I saw that we were building something from scratch, and we had to build it with the community, we integrated, therefore, in our DNA also not just the environmental pillar of sustainability, but from the get-go also the social economic pillar of sustainability. And then throughout the years, as we were selling our wines, so we started to sell the first bottle. My husband was my partner in crime. Is taking care of all our commercial vision. He started to sell the first bottle in 2005. We started to sell to the Nordic monopolies, especially Sweden, because they were at the time in the mid 2000s, they were the ones who were interested in organic wines. By 2008, we had started to sell already 1 million bottles. And as we grew and our vineyard grew with the sales, we just continued to reinforce our organic practices. And then there has been a natural evolution, you know, pushing it a bit further every time. Okay, we're organic. We've been organic now for so many years, as we, you know, added more vines little by little, because we didn't go, you know, all to 200 hectares in one go. We did it little by little in that journey. So that's how we got to expand our practices. And then, you know, we went to biodynamics, and let's push it further. Let's go to biodynamic, and then let's push it to regenerative organic. And every time it's pushing ourselves a bit more. And that's how we go here. And that's why I say it's a journey. And we're still into this journey. Well into it.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see. And I think what I heard from what you just said is that it's almost like you're building resilience at all times into your business. That was the word that came to mind from all you were saying. And I mean, of course, that makes sense. But I think for many years, people haven't realized that it's also about the social resilience and the environmental resilience. It's all part of the economic resilience as well, and they're all intertwined. And you just perfectly kind of laid that out. So that was really cool to hear it all together. And what a journey. And maybe we could dig into that kind of progression of certifications, because one of the things I've seen is certainly if you suddenly start to certify, it can be difficult to get people engaged, especially people who have to collect information suddenly they didn't have to collect before. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about, you know, how do you keep people engaged, you know, especially people on the ground? And does anyone ever complain about all the certifications?
Oh, I'm sure I do. But just don't tell me so much.
Yeah.
But again, you know, because we were born with it, it has always been part of our culture. So here, a huge element is that it's really part of our culture. It's culture. So it's not that all of a sudden we woke up, you know, after 15 years of existence and we say, oh, we're going to add all the certifications. No, we grew with it, with the first one being the organic certification. So from my point of view, you know, as the owner of a company and being a CEO of it, I found the certification an amazing tool.
Mhm.
Selfishly, because it helps me and my husband to give us an amazing support and tool to manage in an organized way our company, because the certification imposed certain standard, and you get the audits every year, and so the teams have to respond to these audits and have to do all the actions they take according to the standards set up by the certification. So internally, it helps a lot to organize a company.
Mhm.
And externally, it's also a big, credential for our consumers to really be sure that what we say we do, we actually do. It's audited every year, by third party, international third parties. So I found it an amazing tool. And because we started from the beginning, we have people who have been here with us for 5-10 years, and they just grew with it, so it becomes part of their job, it becomes part of their routine, so it's a culture. and
Mhm.
and, and that's a good question when you had about how do the people take it. Well, we explain very well when we have interviews. Our human resource department is very integrating this culture, and I insist on the culture point of view. And so they make sure to really emphasize on this when we hire people. And the people who really are not into certification or are not in sustainability, if they do get hired, they usually don't last too long, because it's a natural filter that
Mhm.
it's just something that they're not into it. And so because this culture is so strong for us, if it is not for them, they will go. Now, the people who really enjoy it, then really go with it and become very passionate.
Mhm.
So again, that's culture for me, and
Totally.
very important.
And do you
Mhm.
think if so obviously you haven't exactly experienced this, so you don't know for certain, but if you were to kind of look at it, let's say there's another large scale business, vineyard business, and they wanted to start implementing certifications, what do you think, given your experience, where do you start, or what would your approach be if you were to kind of step in and do that?
Yeah, and more actually, wineries, are suffering from the climate change.
Yeah.
We all victims. No, like I mentioned earlier, no region in the world is spared of that. So we are a member at Domaine Bousquet of several international organizations, and we see that more and more wineries every year are becoming member of the Sustainability One Roundtable, Porto Protocol, International Winery from Climate Action. And that is very encouraging to see more and more wineries coming and being members and applying. And that shows that there is a real need. That shows that we all fall victims of a climate change. So these wineries, they're seeing that they want to do something. And what I want to transmit is okay, yes, certification, of course, is ideal to get as many certification as a winery as we can, but also don't get too stressed out from the certification, because it puts pressure. So I think the for a winery who is already a bit big, medium size or big, who wants to start this journey, is first lay out a plan. For me, I'm very, I need to see the long term, where the long term, then breaking down to the medium term, and then the short term. So having layout as a strategic goals, a long-term plan. Where do you want to be, maybe in 5 years? And then what do you need to do for that, for the next to be in year of 3 in 3 years, and what you need to do next year to get to the 3 years plan and the 5 year plan. Because again, it's a journey, so you need to have a long-term vision, especially in our industry. I mean, changes in the vineyard don't happen overnight. One thing that viticulture teaches you, or farming in general teaches you, is patience.
Yeah.
Is patience.
That's,
It's
yeah, so
humbleness.
true.
And humbleness. You cannot do more than what nature allows you to do,
Yeah.
you know? And And that's why you cannot just have a short-term vision. You need to have a long-term vision, and every year update, and adding a year to your long-term plan and update it every year based on what has happened this year, in terms of a climate, in terms of a new technologies coming in terms of a new findings, because thanks to all this new organization, thanks for all the work you do yourself at Vidacycle, we have more and more and more platforms to do practice sharing, sharing our practices, sharing our knowledge. This is fantastic. Technology here helps us a lot, so every year things change so fast that about all this knowledge and technology, that so we can adjust the plan. So for me is that establishing a long-term goal, a long-term vision, and go step by step, and don't get too stressed out or pressured by, oh, well, I need to certify now, because if you don't have it from the beginning into your company, like we did, being born with it, that's true. But there, Abby, it becomes difficult to all of a sudden tell people, okay, now we're going to have all these KPIs, now we're going to do all this database, and now we're going to measure you. Yeah, people get very overwhelmed with this. You need to go little by little.
Yeah, totally.
In my
And
opinion.
yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I think actually maybe it's a good place to move over to talk a little bit more about your report, because I think what the report does do so well, and hearing you speak, I wonder how much it's in your DNA that the report is kind of a reflection of how you share things. I don't know, but certainly what I got from the report was that you were able to kind of talk at the very high level, the systemic thinking about where do you want Domaine Bousquet to be in the future, and where does it sit in the global, let's say, ecosystem, and but also you were then able to break it down into very clear, specific strategies for how to achieve any goals that were set on that systemic level. And then, importantly, you had very clear KPIs of how you'll monitor if you've achieved those goals. So it really is in my view, a brilliant kind of operating at many different levels all at once. And I'm a very practical person. So, it was when reading the KPIs that I thought, oh yeah, okay, now I understand what this means. So I wonder, yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about, how do you keep on top of the KPIs? Like, for example, one KPI in your soil health aspect was that you're going to track the total hectares of where you have cover crops or where you're reducing tillage. So, they're very practical KPIs. So maybe could you say a little bit about how do you keep on top of those?
Right. So in our case, we didn't decide to do a report and then go into action. We have been into action for the past 25 years, and finally we said, oh, finally we could communicate what we've been doing for all these years since the very beginning to our customers. Because before we were just doing like I described our journey up until now, and we never put in a report. So that was a great thing because because it also organizes the way we want to communicate it. And communication, we finally realized, okay, not only we can bring something to this world by our practices in the ground, but and that might just cover 50% of the equation. The other 50% is to share what we're doing with other people, with the stakeholders, with our clients, with our suppliers, with all this organization we're starting to be member of, because communication is also very important. Like I was saying before, practice sharing. So this is how we started to think. We have not communicated. We just do our thing in our vineyard in Tupungato, Argentina. Let's bring it out to the world. So we start educating also the consumers, about what is sustainability, what do we do exactly in the vineyards. So that's how we did it. And that goes hand in hand with the strategy that we have. So we have a strategic plan for our sustainability department. We created a sustainability department 3-4 years ago. I'm heading it. just dedicated to sustainability, and so we have our strategic plan for sustainability, we have our strategic plan for vineyard management. They of course go hand in hand, they work together. And that's what the report, we had been tracking already. We had been setting up this database and tracking it every year a bit better. Again, thanks to the technology, thanks to what we're learning. It's continuing process of and opportunities to make it better. And so the report is just a reflection of our strategic plan. And that's why it's maybe more well defined. It's not just that we wanted to do a report for the sake of having a report, and then we started to go and do things to be able to make a report. No, we did the things and then we put it together into a report.
Yeah.
So that was not that difficult. And it helped us, like I said, organize ourselves. And for the practicality, I'm very pragmatic myself and practical. And so I want to be able to read, when I read things, something that I clearly understand. And so from the get-go, when we started to work with Terra Institute, which is and with Lucia, who is an amazing passionate person of sustainability, and she's the one from Terra Institute working with us on our strategic plan, helping us, because it's always good to have someone coming and questioning, okay, what do you do this, what do you do with KPI? It's very important. And when we started to work with her, we said we want something very clear. We need something simple, because nature is simple, it's very simple. That's what also, nature and being farmers teaches us. It's simple. Look at the vine. What is that? What does it miss? Does it miss, nutrients? Does it miss plant water? Do we water sufficiently or no, or too much, or at the right time? It's just observing and being simple. If we cover the most practical and simple way things in life, then you can get to the next step. But for us, it's at least cover the more simple things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I that definitely comes through in the report. And I was amazed. I understood it. Don't usually understand reports. So it was brilliant. And I think one question I had is, like, for example, in our team, we do have some KPIs, and then we report on them monthly, and some of them are more numerical, and some of them are a little more kind of sense. We have a sense of if things are going in a direction. So yeah, I would, well, I have two questions there. One is, do you do monthly reporting on the KPIs? How do you, because I know you're releasing a new report, or you're releasing a report shortly, which will tell updated numbers and where you're at now. And are you kind of monitoring things more frequently than that throughout the year? How do you know where you're going and what the direction is?
Yeah, no, the database that supports the report, that is behind the scene of the report and our strategic plan, is a monthly database that we monitor. Yeah, our sustainability team monitors that, because there is accountability, from the rest of the sectors. So sustainability is transversal to the company, and so what we created is a green team. So this green team as a representative of each sector, including finance and administration, purchasing department, everybody. We have a representative of each sector. And so our sustainability department gets the data for all the sectors, update the KPIs, monthly KPIs, monitors it. I analyze them on a monthly. I look at them on the scorecard on a monthly basis. And when we start to see, that some KPIs we don't like all of a sudden that month, then, the green team can talk about it, and can analyze what's going on, so we can react to it.
Exactly.
And it has to be a team, because the sustainability is throughout the company, and we can only do it all together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is how we do.
And I know when we chatted before, I asked, how do you make sure that people are committed and convinced, let's say, by what they're doing? And you gave me an example of Paula, And maybe you could just tell a little bit about the ecological corridors and her, I think her name was Paula.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could tell a little about the story of.
Oh, we have so many examples. But yeah, Paula was just at the dinner with her last night, and she was actually, we're just talking. She's a very passionate young lady who is our vineyard manager, and she was crying on the 21st of November, was in tears on the morning of 21st of November after we got hit the day before, the 20th of November last year, by the biggest hailstorm that has ever been seen in this region. Something out of this world. And this is where you feel that humbleness, but there is nothing you can do. Never, no one had seen that, and not just us in 27 years, but we have a lot of our employees here are from the local community, from the local town, 7 kilometers from here, and they were born here, and they had never seen this, and I remember that day, I was in the US and I had just finished a meeting online with International Winery for Climate Action. And we were talking about climate change and everything. And an hour later, they gave me the call that 20th of November of a huge, huge hailstorm. To tell you the force of that hailstorm, it lasted 25 minutes at 10:30 at night. And in the 20th of November, we're well into spring. We have very nice temperature. I mean, we're a month away from summer starting. And the next day at 7 in the morning, we still had in the vineyard a good 10 to 15 centimeters of compacted ice that had not, for the strength of the impact, it compacted itself, the ice of all this hailstorm, hail bolt that came, all the hail compacted itself. And even though it was warm, it had not melted yet. By 6, 7 in the morning, it melted throughout the day. And the destruction that it did to the vineyard, all our cover crops that Paola had worked so hard on, doing trials and error. Okay, this cover crop is better, this one is better, this one doesn't work so much. Years, 2, 3 years of working on this. We had beautiful cover crop because we have a big problem in Argentina where we are with the Bermuda grass, which we call chipica, which is keep going and you can't stop it. So the way we stop, because we can put any chemical product, is to compete with it, with the right cover crop, because of course, some cover crop are much better to compete with it than others. So you need to have cover crops that give will make shade, so it doesn't develop too much of Bermuda grass. So you need to study. It's a whole study, all this, and so it destroyed completely our cover crops. We had set up the biological corridor, totally destroyed. The vines were not so much destroyed because we have nets. So all our vines have nets, which we saw there really works to protect. It does. The only thing is that because it was so intense, it went through the middle at the top of a canopy where there is a little space between the connection of the two nets. And so some of the hairs went into the middle of the canopy. And so at the time, Paola told us it's going to be good 30 to 40% damage and a reduction in yield. And we today it's our official finish to the harvest 2025.
Oh, congratulations.
Last day was yesterday, and I'm happy to declare that we did not have loss.
Wow.
We actually had better yields than the year before. And that is a testament to the resilience of our vines. I put and again, it's a learning. Nature teaches you all the time. We're learning. So we have to understand here that the fact that we have been organic, biodynamic, regenerative, taking care of the soil, taking care of the health of the soil, where the plant was able, thanks to all this, was able to react after that and got itself better by itself because it had enough resources. It's like is like a human being, a human being that has a healthy way of living will be the body of a healthy human being will be in better condition to fight a sudden sickness, most likely, and that's the same for the vines. Regenerative or organic and biodynamic practices make the soil much more in the vine much more healthy and strong, because it doesn't have the support of chemicals constantly. It has to fight by itself all these years.
Yeah.
And that's what I think nature showed us. The plants showed us the resilience they had.
Wow.
And that's a beautiful story and of finishing to the harvest.
Yeah. So
You can
Paolo,
make it emotional.
definitely. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I mean, I've been in those moments where there is the destruction or things look pretty bad on the ground, and it is a bit heartbreaking, but it's so great to hear that it was actually just another way to show you how resilient your vines are.
Correct.
And actually, just going back to what I was saying, my other part to that question is that I wanted to hear from your perspective. I know you're an economist, so you may not agree with me, but sometimes I feel like numbers can lead us astray. That's been my sometimes. And I was just wondering, do you have any way of sense checking around the numbers and the KPIs? How do you deal with that?
No, and you're right. Numbers are one thing. They're important because you need to measure. You cannot improve if you don't need to measure, but you have to question the numbers. So that's why you need different pair of eyes, first of all, to questioning the numbers. So we have our sustainability team. We have Lucia from Terra Institute, again, looking at the scorecard, and to see if something jumps out to myself, So we like to have several pair of eyes checking all this because and we find sometimes numbers that don't make sense. So we come back and say, why? We have found, for example, we had leakage. One day, calculating the KPI of water consumed in the winemaking in the cellar jumped out. We're like, what is this? There must be an error. Come back, recalculate it. And I said, no, well, we found out we had a leakage. We
Oh,
had,
wow.
yeah. And we had to reduce some tubes underground where the water was going through where we're broken. So it's interesting. So you need to have several pair of eyes, and then there is nothing better than also just to put together the numbers with the reality. I mean, now I spend my time, between being at the vineyard on average 1 week a month at the winery in Argentina, but we also now based in the US in Miami, where we have our own import company for our wines. So I am in Miami as a base, but coming here on average every month, also traveling a lot to be in the markets and to go and speak about sustainability. But I come here every month because when I come here, it's also walking into the winery, walking into the cellar, looking at things, walking into the vineyards. And they're also having the numbers, the KPIs in the head, but going there also, you start to make sense of these numbers, and you need this reality check. You cannot just look at the numbers. You need to be in the vineyards.
Totally. Yeah, no, I completely agree. It just makes it real. Yeah, well, as I said, you're just about to publish the update to the annual report, I think, so that you can be transparent about the numbers. And I was wondering, maybe you could share, are there any KPIs that you feel not so good about at this point, and how are you thinking of going around about improving them?
Well, one KPI I'm never so satisfied about is the water consumption, and I think my teams feel I'm completely obsessed with water, and one should be, because to tell you the impact also the climate change on our region, and what I was explaining at the very beginning of less snow that we have had in the past 20 years in the mountain, and therefore the lack of water. We depend on wells here, okay? So because of what's happening, about 8 to 10 years ago, the governor of Mendoza province, because it's like, states here. Each province is like a state that has its own governance, and the governor of the Mendoza state prohibited new wells to be done about 10 years ago, because there was not enough water, because there was not enough snow. And that's a good thing they did, because for the people who already had wells, if you were authorizing new wells, knowing that there was not enough snow, therefore we won't have enough water later on, after the winter, that would make, the level of the water down in the wells going down for everybody, and that would be counterproductive. So that's to tell you the impact. So I am always chasing our teams about the water use, and that's one of our major KPI, and I'm not fully satisfied where it is, and so, but this is one of the biggest goal that they have, especially in the winemaking department and the vineyard management department. But at least, you need to put it, you need to, to put it there as a KPI, because this is how we take action plan in the short term, medium term, and long term action plan to reduce the use of water.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I so resonate with that on our farm in Chile as well. I'm constantly talking about water.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does feel like the gold. It feels like gold.
Right. It is gold.
It is gold, exactly. Maybe, yeah, you keep talking about the long-term, medium-term, short-term goals. And I think maybe we could just reflect a little on, in the report, when you put that report together, I understand we're already enacting on most of the things. So in a way, it was just a reflection of what was happening in the field. But I wonder also, when you started to map things out like that, was that difficult? And was it Lucia that really took you through that process, or had you already kind of got them mapped out? Because maybe you could share a little bit about, the new structure. Did it bring out kind of information in a new way that was actually very helpful?
Well, definitely, because she the first thing she encouraged us to do was to map out our system and the stakeholders. And actually, part of a report, we did a double materiality analysis. And that was fantastic to do, because we started to organize, meetings with the main stakeholders, so clients, suppliers, also wineries. We talked to a winery in Chile who is also very sustainable, and sharing all this. And I discovered there, it was amazing to have these conversations. We had conversation with part of our client with Systembolaget in Sweden, with Hillebrand, one of our suppliers, for transportation, with a sustainability department of his companies, and there, you realize that we are in the same boat, because we all scratching our heads, say, okay, we have all this, we're starting to understand where's our problem, mainly transportation, and packaging. And how can we work together? Because we can't do it all. We depend on the transport company, to reduce one, like I said, for us as packaging, as a winery, and transportation. So we need to talk to also our supplier for bottles in Mendoza. And that was really, for me, an amazing experience to sit at these meetings, doing our double materiality, and really there understanding, how we get affected and how we affect, and that double way. And then we mapped out, and it's in the report, the Domaine Bousquet system, and it really makes you think, and it really, it's like we're busy every day, and you're in the day-to-day. And this, when we did it for the first time, last year, it was really taking the time to sit down and reflect through all this thing. What is our system? How do we get impacted? How can we work with all the stakeholders to have a more powerful result? And we continue this because now once you launch it, and that's where the double materiality is very powerful. I think if you do it well, we continue to be in contact with all the stakeholders and continuing to work together, because again, it's a journey and it's a collaborative one. And we have to do it together. So yes, we learned a lot. We learned so we took the time to put the system on a map, and then to get organized with all this data, because we had the data, they were everywhere in the company. So this is where we said, no, we're going to organize, we're going to create the database, and we became more systematic about it. So that was really, really helpful also for us. Like I said, really like the certifications, the report helped us internally to organize ourselves, to have all our KPIs, and it helps us also externally to communicate it to our stakeholders, to our consumers, and our customers.
Absolutely. And I guess one more question just about the KPIs, sorry, is for example, the soil health KPIs. So let's say how many hectares of cover crops there are. Who decided on those how were they decided on? Did it, like when you were doing that mapping, was it kind of a process where you shared the systemic mapping with the team, and then the vineyard team went away and said, okay, well, we need to think about soil health. What would be the KPIs, or how did that work?
Oh yeah, that's Lucia at the beginnings. There were many hours of of back and forth and brainstorming, and she did sit with all the teams, and each team had to give us their proposal for KPIs. It was a very we at Domaine Bousquet, we really like to involve people. But there is one big thing here. It's very important that sustainability comes from the top. You have to have a leader of a company really believing in it. And we do with Labid, because we were born as a company, Labid being my husband, we were born as a company with it, like I explained. So for us, we built our company like this. And the very first meeting we had, where I introduced Lucia, is a meeting that I led myself. I led myself, and I set the tone for the teams. And I said, this is what we want to do. You guys have been working on this for so many years now. Now we want to put it into a report. And I sold it to them, because I needed them to be on board. But when they see that, the owner, and CEO of a company is telling that, and that I'm so convinced of it, then they will get convinced. And then I let, Lucia and our sustainability manager, I will show up from time to time. I'll be sitting in certain meetings, but, they were convinced because I transmitted my passion about it, and
Totally.
that is very important.
Yeah, no, and I
Lead
hear
by
it.
example. I'm a big believer of leading by example.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I feel like it really is. I know when we spoke initially, we did talk a lot about culture, and it does seem like, maybe the two words I would use to sum up what comes through to me is like resilience, but also culture. It's like those two things really are reflected in everything you do and everything you say. It seems like those are so core to the success of Domaine Bousquet and where you're at today. And they're there in the report as well. And I wanted, maybe I could just ask you a question about, if anyone has any questions for Anne, now would be a good time to start asking them, because I will jump to any questions in the Q&A, but I will also keep asking my own questions, which is, so let's say there was a smaller vineyard, maybe, I don't know, 20 hectares or 40 hectares, and they wanted to start scaling up. Maybe they're already regenerative. What do you think are the 2 to 3 key things that they need to focus on in order to do that effectively?
If they were already regenerative?
Yeah. or maybe not, or let's say they're conventional, where would you start then?
Right. It's be what I said earlier. Start with small steps. First of all, as I said, the leader of a company needs to be convinced and knowledgeable about it. Because to be convinced of something, to want something, you need to have learned about it, and then find the right people who are gonna take that ownership for you, would be in your vineyard taking ownership. And that's one point for us. I was mentioning is, okay, yes, it has to come from the leader, lead by example, but then you need to involve the people. The people need to have ownership of this. They need to be convinced of it. And this is putting the right team in place for this. And then this person who will be, passionate about it because they know also about it. They have a knowledge. And so they will implement step by step. They will implement the practices. And you start with one and you start with another one. 1 year when we started our compost, we started with small quantity. So we became knowledgeable. We hired a third-party consultant and expert in compost for a year, and he will come. He came 2-3 times. With us a year and a half. He came a few times to the winery. He was from Brazil. And our Irma, our sustainability manager, learned so much from him, And so then she started to apply what she learned. And we started with a small quantity. We understand, what the errors we made, what we could do better. And then the next year we did more. And the next we double it. And then we tripled it, as we became confident in our practices. The same for the biodynamic. So it's get knowledgeable to really understand that this is what you want, then get the people who really are knowledgeable, and sometimes you can get help from third-party consultant, but amazing consultant now throughout the world in all these practices, and go step by step. Don't get yourself overwhelmed, because nature can overwhelm you, and but slowly but surely, following your strategic plan.
Yeah, I feel like that is the thing that maybe one of my key learnings from you is the power of the strategic plan. I think sometimes I underestimate that, or I feel like it can be a distraction. But actually, it's a really powerful tool in order to lead forward, but take people along with you, and be able to do it coherently. And yeah, it's amazing. Great. And then I wanted to have one more question of my own, which is, when we talked about this earlier, you said that, even with all this amazing work, it's still very difficult to show how does all the work on sustainability directly impact the bottom line. It's difficult to show that directly. And yeah, how do you see that maybe changing, or from your economist point of view, is there some work that needs to be done on better putting some like soil health, water retention metrics on our P&L, or, it feels like that's, what do you think about that? And where are you at?
Yeah, that's very interesting. We still have a regular P&L, and we haven't incorporated, a line in the P&Ls that are connected to what we do in terms of sustainability. And this is something really I want to start working on. But for example, look what I explained today about closing the harvest 2025, having higher yield than the year before. Well, that is going to affect our P&L positively when, in November, we thought we had to reduce by 40% the grapes we were going to get in, therefore, the production of our wine. So that is going to affect positively our P&L. Sometimes you get affected negatively, because when you have frost, like we have had before, where we had a whole vineyard frozen and there's frost, there is not much you can do. Hail, you can have a nets, frost, forget it. Well, these are direct impact on your P&L. That you can, and we should actually start, that's a great question that makes me think that we should actually start to show them separately. you know, but here you have on the negative or positive impact on the production to put it there. And then, yes, I think where we can start also looking at in the P&L to add is the savings we have in terms of water, energy. These are things that can, and it's very interesting to start to measure this, because on a typical P&L, it's not being done. And I think we should start be doing it. Thank you for your question.
Well, you just seem so well placed to do it because of your background and where you're at. But yeah, well, thank you. And thank you so much. We've got to finish up now. But I really appreciate you talking through all the details and how you've managed to get to where you've got to. And we'll send a link to the report. When does the updated report numbers come out, Anne? Is that this month?
Yeah, this month. So we're going to publish it on every year we want to do this on Earth Day, which
Earth Day.
I believe is, yeah.
20th of April?
That's our date, Earth Day. I believe it's 22nd of April.
22nd, that's right. Great. Well, I'm really excited to see the update. But for anyone who hasn't read it already, I do highly recommend reading the original report. And we will send around a link to that, along with the recording of this webinar. And yeah, if anyone is interested to hear more about Sectormentor, then please do email us on info@vidacycle.com. And we are very excited also to share about the Regen Viticulture Hub, which is on our website, vines.vidacycle.com. And that's a free learning hub with all the key resources for the amazing practical insights that people have shared in these Regen Viticulture series over time. And Anne will shortly be on there as well. And we are actually just, well, actually, I won't share that yet, but there's some more exciting news to come as well. So do tune in. And just thank you so much. And I really appreciate all you're doing at Domaine Bousquet. And we really look forward to following the journey. We're on it with you. And it just seems so exciting.
Thank you so much, Abby. Thank you for having this platform. I think this is fantastic what you do. And thank you to all our audience. I see from the little messages we got that we have got an international audience.
Yes.
So thank you all from wherever you are to have taken the time today to be with Abby and I. And thank you, Abby.